and I craved my old best friend. I craved my old best friend, and my old best friend was alcohol. And I'd forgotten how comforting it used to be to just think, well, no matter what's going on right now, at least I know I can get drunk, and at least I won't be completely alone. Staying sober for me is the most important thing in the world. I'm an alcoholic in recovery. My name is Noah. A lot of you know that. A lot of you have been around here for a long time. I've been sober since September of 2023, and outside of the first, let's say, month, maybe a month and a half of getting sober after having been a daily binge drinker for a couple years, particularly daily the last 5 or 6 months of my drinking, after the first 6 weeks of getting sober, I really haven't had an obsession or a physiological craving to drink. And that's no small miracle for someone like me. And I don't want to say that I took that for granted. I don't think I did. But I've been very caught off guard by what wound up being last week a very intense craving and a huge spike in rumination and obsession to drink. In a lot of ways, I damn near relapsed. Certainly had a bit of a mental emotional relapse, but I want to talk about how I got through last week being 10 and a half months sober. I want to share just what's on my head and how it affected me and where my head's at and what I think happened and what I did to get through it. I want to share it for anyone who, like me, has good reason to be sober. And for anyone like me who's ever been a relapser, who's ever been someone who has gotten sober, gone through great lengths to get and stay sober, but then found themselves at the bottom of a bottle again. I want to make this video for you, but obviously I want to make this video for anyone who has been impacted by addiction. Last week scared me, and I'll tell you what happened. At the end of my drinking, I couldn't stop drinking, even though I really, really wanted to. Sometimes I wonder if that phrasing just doesn't make sense to people, but I know it makes sense to people in recovery. I know it makes sense to addicts and alcoholics. There's this place that I got in my drinking, which is not uncommon for alcoholics like me, where my best wishes, my most intense wants weren't enough to propel me into any length of sobriety. My level of addiction was so ingrained. I was in such a deep groove of binge daily drinking and physical addiction and mental emotional obsession, or mental obsession, I guess, that just not drinking because I probably shouldn't wasn't an option. So without going into all of that again, which I detail a lot because I think identification on the insanity of being an alcoholic is important. But by the grace of God, it seems like a miracle. It really does. I was able to get sober. It was painful. It was hard. It was weird. And I was able to regain some semblance of self-trust. Something addiction takes from me is any sense rather that I can trust myself. And that fucking sucks. That's a terrible place to be when you're like, I don't know what I'm going to do at any given moment. I don't know what I'm going to say. I don't know to what lengths I will go to get drunk. I don't know what commitments I will forfeit, etc. I want to tell a quick backstory before I come to my craving last week, talk about what caused it, talk about how freaking insane I got for a second and how weird it was, and how old behaviors and old brain and old feelings came back. I go to 12-step meetings as a huge part of my recovery. I go to 12-step meetings probably 5 or 6 days a week. I have a sponsor in those 12-step meetings. I have a home group in those 12-step meetings. I have a service position, and I work the steps in those 12-step meetings. And they have been an incredible source of comfort, leadership, support, and community for me. I've avoided 12-step meetings my whole life despite being in and out of those rooms, but I came in so broken that I've very much surrendered to them to the best of my ability, just out of pure fear for my life, if I'm being honest. And it's led to a lot of joy and stability, peace, and hope, and all of those things. So if you need support, it's an option for you for sure. But I have this memory of being in a 12-step meeting, maybe 3 or 4 weeks into this time being sober. And I'm hyper fearful in the early days because, like I said a moment ago, I just don't know what I'm going to do. I really don't. I don't know what I'm going to do any given moment. I'm so afraid of myself and my self-destructive nature. And I was a couple, 2-3 weeks sober, and I went to a friend's gym, and there was a case of beer sitting on a bench. I'm pretty sure it was like the residuals or the leftovers from a party. And I felt that awake feeling, that hot, pressury, alerted, craving feeling. And I went to a meeting, and I barely got through that day. And I remember that hot pressure going, oh no, I'm going to get drunk again. And if I get drunk again, I don't know what's going to happen. And I just got these 3 weeks, and I know what it took to get 3 weeks. And it took a couple of years of binge drinking and self-destructing and pain. And I talked to someone, and people supported me, and I had the instinct and or the good luck and the good fortune of just saying it out loud at that meeting. I still went to a meeting after I got alerted. People surrounded me, and somehow, some way, I didn't get drunk that day. It was a huge deal. And that to me was the last time I was aggressively and very physiologically triggered to get drunk. The obsession lifted, and the craving to drink lifted after that day or thereabouts. And that's really, really amazing, because I spent, it seems like every waking moment thinking about drinking or thinking about not drinking when I was actively in my addiction. It just dominated my life. It's wild how much of my attention, time, energy, and money it took from me. And I've been doing really, really well since then. There have been ups and downs in getting sober, for sure. I've had better stretches and harder stretches per se. But in terms of my craving alcohol or my obsession to drink, which was a never-ending thing for me when I was actively drinking, and a very nerve-wracking thing in the early month or two of sobriety, I haven't really dealt with it. And it's been incredible. It's like this weird thing when you get sober, for me, where it's like you're unplugging from the matrix and you start to come into the actual world. And I find myself going like, where have I been and what have I been doing? And so the last 7 or 8 or 9 months, things have been going really, really well as a whole. Tons of difficulties, tons of tough things to learn, a lot of mental resetting as far as the burden I put on my body with drinking and stuff. Anyway, let me get to last week. So I would argue that prior to a little over a week ago, maybe a week and a half ago, I was on a whole new level of just general contentment and calmness. One of the badass things about getting sober for me so far is this ability to enjoy simple things in life that were no longer creating a sense of enjoyment or pleasure anymore. I just hijacked my neurochemistry, I think, for so long, and suppressed my emotional and spiritual wellness for so long that only getting extremely drunk could bring about good feelings until that stopped even happening. So a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago, I was just doing well. I really was. The kind of well that I think early in sobriety I probably couldn't have imagined, because you kind of need to experience it to buy into it. And then something happened. And that's what I want to finally talk about. The buy-in was this whole video getting to this point. I went from being cloud 9, pink cloud stable, just doing so well, nothing can hurt me, trusting God, trusting my program, enjoying food, enjoying life, learning about myself, growing, pursuing things, just feeling really, really good about things, to thinking I was going to get drunk in a matter of one conversation. My wife was having a harder day, and she, generally speaking, is very consistent with her mood, very consistent with her behavior, far more consistent than I've been in the last 10 years, that's for sure. But she was having a harder day, and we sat down and she said some stuff. And I'm not about to assassinate my wife's character on here. Nothing she said was that crazy. If you're married or you're with someone, your person occasionally says some wild shit that they don't necessarily mean. And without telling you the particulars, out of respect for her, my wife said some shit that I don't really think, well, I know now that she didn't mean, but she just was having a hard time. She was worried about this or that. And she said a few things. And you know what? One thing I can tell you, and I'll try to keep this brief, but we'll see. One thing I can tell you is that she is constantly working through fear that I'm going to relapse again. And it's not really a big wonder why. She's been with me since I was 21. I'm 37 now. She's seen me through 3 different rehab centers. She's seen me through so many bouts of attempted sobriety and then inevitable relapse. And she's watched my progression from being someone who probably shouldn't drink so much to someone who can't stop drinking. And it's really, really had a terrible impact on her wellness. And so she just had one of those days where she was being fearful of that stuff, and she said some things. And I'll leave it at that. She said some things. And they caught me off guard. And for the purpose of this video, and thank you for letting me share, and thank you for being here, I got activated. And in plain terms, I got thirsty. For the first time in like 9 months, I got thirsty. And it scared me. And it kind of still scares me, even though that has calmed back down. But my head got hot and my sense of stability got rattled. And I craved my old best friend. I craved my old best friend. And my old best friend was alcohol. And I'd forgotten how comforting it used to be to just think, well, no matter what's going on right now, at least I know I can get drunk, and at least I won't be completely alone, so to speak. Alcohol, historically, until it stopped working, in a lot of ways, despite a lot of pain and self-loathing, alcohol was a very comforting factor in my life. And I knew it was the crux, or at least a catalyst for all of my problems. I don't think alcohol was the problem. I think it was my solution. I've heard that a lot, and I tend to agree. But I knew that if I could just address the things that needed to be addressed to stop drinking, and then learn how to live life and whatever, that things could be okay. But I never could, and I kept trying. It doesn't matter. The point is that conversation activated me, and I felt scared, and I felt overwhelmed, and my first reaction was alcohol. My first gut reaction was, I just want to get drunk and run away. And I noticed the thought, and I felt the feelings in that I had a hormone dump for sure. And I did my best to ignore it and work through it. But over the course of the next couple days, that sense of doom and that sense of dread and that sense of hopelessness got worse. And then I found myself just obsessing about drinking again. I could see it. I could taste it. I was visualizing it. I was thinking about where to go. I didn't think I was going to do it necessarily, but I could see the wheels were turning. And I was like, oh shit. There's like this younger kid in me, this older version or younger version, but a version from yesteryear that gets spooked by this. And there's this new adult me that is taking his place as far as making the decisions around here. I wonder if any of this is translating, but who tries to calm that version of me down. And that version of me, that young, scared, immature, impulsive version of me was like, oh my God, we're gonna fuck this up. We're gonna get drunk. Jesse's gonna leave me. I'm gonna lose everything. I'm gonna die, whatever. Because it got bleak at the end of my drinking, and it turned a lot of wheels. And so, and by the way, Jessie took back / apologized for the things she shared with me almost instantly. And she kind of explained it, and she was very sweet and soothing, and it was not a huge deal, so to speak, like you would think. But the activation was done. So a couple days later, I'm just feeling insecure, and still just like I've jumped back into the matrix mentally and emotionally. I'm driving my brother and my sister-in-law to the airport, and I'm imagining stopping for a drink, and it's like I went right back to my drinking as far as the feelings and the thoughts. And you know what I wanted to do? I wanted to call my sponsor. And you know what I did not do? I did not call my sponsor. It's like I have this strange, sick tendency that when I'm activated or when I have a craving, some part of my animal brain wants to protect it. And every part of what I think to be my true self is screaming for me to burn the ships and call it out and let someone know. So I'm going to work through that and work through that process. And I'm going to take some steps to see if I can bolster that muscle that says, hey, dude, pick up the phone and just tell someone that you're freaking the fuck out and you think you might get drunk. But I prayed to the best of my ability. I turned on a 12-step speaker meeting and I listened to that on the drive. And I did the whole, hey, let's not get drunk today. let's see what we think tomorrow. I played the tape. I leaned on the daily experience I've had in 12-step programs. And thank God I went home and I told my wife. I told my wife the truth. And I'm glad I did that, because it took a lot of the power out of what I was so afraid of. And it reminded me, all I really want is peace of mind. And I just wanted to feel better. I just wanted to feel different. And it's no wonder that being triggered or being scared or being upset or being activated takes me back to getting drunk, because that pathway has been deeply grooved in my brain probably since I was 13 or 14 years old. And it certainly got extra deep, that groove. That trench was dug extra low as I got older. And so it makes sense. I was at a meeting and a guy was like, dude, you stayed sober. You didn't get drunk over this. We're like designed to drink, and you didn't get drunk over this. You talked about it and you breathed through it. And yeah, I didn't call my sponsor right away, and I'd like to work on that because I love my sponsor, but I did tell someone and I didn't get drunk. And then I went to a meeting and talked about it. And you know what? Since then, the feeling has gone away. And I've returned to a much more calm, normal, whatever my new normal is that I'm trying to find. I've recaptured it, and that's really, really good. And I find myself laughing and giggling and enjoying life again. But it's almost like with this weird looking over my shoulder thing, because that drink is just this far away, and that old life it's right there. It's just there waiting for me. And this experience reminded me of that. It really, really did. So I just wanted to talk about it, because I didn't drink despite this craving and obsession, and it did die back down, and it was very strong, and I got through it. And so I think, one, I just like being honest with you guys to the best of my ability, and I like sharing what's actually going on with my life, but I also like the idea that something I experience might be able to help one of you. It can be nerve-wracking to talk about potential relapse on here for me to some degree, given my history on here. Even I am self-conscious about the fact that I have embarked on yet another sober journey. And I almost hate that I just rolled my own eyes at something that's so beautiful and takes so much damn courage to do. But I get self-conscious about the potential of saying I failed again. But you know what? I always keep trying. So long as I still have breath in my lungs, I always give it another shot. And I just want to encourage anyone who stands to lose a lot, if not everything, even the very even the very beating in your heart and the breath in your lungs, your life. I just want to encourage you to keep trying and to be honest and to be brave and to stay sober. If you have a good reason to stay sober, I hope you stay sober, and I hope we make it. I really, really hope we do. And I just want you to know that you're not alone, because on any given week, it can really look like I've got my shit together. And if you were able to just be a fly on the wall and see the way things were crumbling down internally, and see the way I was not fascinating, but imagining and fantasizing rather about running away with alcohol, that still lives in me. That's just part of who I am and what I'm gently and God willing one day at a time marching away from. I'm marching away from a guy who used to think heaven, who used to imagine nirvana being me, leaving my wife, running away from friends and family, finding a hole in the wall at the coast, getting drunk every day and watching movies. That used to sound like heaven to me. No shit. Absolutely no joke. That's what I thought I wanted to do. Particularly when I didn't think I could escape alcohol. I kind of had this moment back in the past where I conceded. I was like, damn, okay, I'm a drunk, I'm an alcoholic. How do I live with this? How do I just accept that this is going to be my life in the least painful way? And for a while, it seemed like running away. And you know what? When I got triggered, when I imagined Jesse leaving me, when I thought I was suddenly doomed, I don't know, wherever my poor little PTSD mind went, that solution still sounded right. That was the first thought. And thankfully, thankfully, the backbone of recovery, my incredible friendships, the hard work that I have committed to these last 9 months or 10 and a half months, they won. And thank God, because this version of me deserves the life I have and deserves to see what more may come. Alcohol was a huge thing, but moving it away and coming back to life and back to real life, I get everything else. And I really am conscious of that. I'm really conscious of that because alcohol stole so much from me. It's freaky. It's really freaky. And I think we downplay how shitty alcohol really is for those of us that are alcoholics. I think it's easy to like play it off because it's so socially acceptable, so widely promoted and encouraged. But alcohol is stealing the souls and the minds and the bodies eventually of so many people that are just stuck in quiet desperation. And I just don't want to be that anymore, as scary as sobriety can occasionally be. I'm just so much happier and more content here, and there's hope for what dreams may come. So that's my spiel. It's a long one. I suppose I knew it would be. If any of you ever want to talk, if you ever want to talk recovery, if you ever want to talk YouTube and business, if you ever want to talk fitness or TRT, I have a scheduling link below. First link in the description. It's a paid service. It really, really helps support me and my family and the work I do here. 15, 30, and 45-minute sessions. I usually talk to a few of you every week, and it's a really important and useful tool for me to give more specific feedback and potential help. It's certainly an understanding ear to those of you on a variety of topics, and it really helps support my family. So consider doing that if you think you might want to talk. Again, it's a paid service. Otherwise, I've got free videos all over the YouTubes. Outside from that, thank you for being here. Please let me know in the comments below how you are, if you've ever dealt with anything like this, how you worked through it. And just know that you're not by yourself. And I'm just going to be reminded how delicate and how fragile recovery can be for a guy like me. And I'm just going to stay right here and stay sober today. And then as I get more time under my belt, I think, and more quality time, I think my confidence to be more jovial and free-spirited with my recovery and my happiness will improve, because waiting for the other shoe to drop still lives in me, because addiction's crazy, and I found myself drunk like that. It is what it is. I'm not alone. I don't feel sorry for myself, by the way, but I just want to respect the process. So my name is Noah. Thank you for taking some time to be with me. If you made it this far, put in the comment section with whatever else is on your mind together. Because I just definitely think addiction is an isolation proposition for me. It's like get drunk. I get alcohol and me, or I get everyone and everything else. That's the deal for how alcohol works in my life. And I'd rather be together. I just would rather be together. All right, guys, take care. We'll see you in the next video. Be brave. 1 day, 1 hour, 1 minute at a time. We can get through what we're going through, and we can do it together, I promise. Adios.